Polipede works here. Today I will be going over Marshall D. Teach's or Blackbeard's final devilfruit, his Zoan fruit. So we're going to break things down in about 3 parts. First, we're going to talk about the darkness fruit, as I think is a very important topic to talk about when it comes to Marshall D. Teach. Secondly, we're going to talk about some various theories I've heard, plus one of my own. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what I think his Zoan fruit shall actually be. Now, there are going to be some timestamps in the description below in case you want to just click around and not watch the whole thing in one big go. With that, let's get started. Before we start talking about the darkness fruit, I would implore you to please like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Also, just in case I have some anime watchers or some people who are kind of fresh to the manga watching, I would suggest that there are some spoilers coming up soon. So if you're not caught up to at least the time skip or at least sort of mid-Wano, so around chapter 1044, I would suggest that maybe you browse the wiki or read the manga to catch up a little bit so you're familiar with what I'm talking about. However, if you do not care about spoilers, please feel free to keep watching. Okay, so the darkness fruit is the crown jewel of all of Blackbeard's operations, right? That is the reason why he killed Thatch, and after he killed Thatch, his plan sort of just kicked into motion, right? Okay, now, here's the thing. My colleagues and friends over these past couple of months, especially after what was revealed about the gum fruit in chapter 1044, the whole thing about it being an actual mythical Zoan called the human fruit model Nika. A lot of people that I've been talking to think that Blackbeard's darkness fruit has a sort of hidden nature as well. I personally don't think that, just based on how Blackbeard is portrayed. Blackbeard is portrayed as somebody in the know who knows what he wants and knows what he wants to go after, right? So paralleling him with Luffy is just around, right? He doesn't really know the fine details of things. All he knows is action and reason, okay? So, of course, he really wouldn't investigate his fruit. He only knows his fruit by the name that was given to him. He didn't investigate it any further, which is in line with his character. Blackbeard, however, has researched the devilfruit encyclopedia, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did some research outside of the devilfruit encyclopedia, because we know one of his hobbies is studying history. Blackbeard is a very informed character. With that being said, I think everything he said about the darkness fruit and his fight with Ace, which was the darkness fruit's debut, I think all that's true. He is a Logia. He's not a weird Zoan. He's not a weird Paramecia. He is a Logia. A weird Logia, but a Logia nonetheless. So, moving forward, I think everything that he does with this fruit is intentional. So, when he, say, hides himself under a black cloak with Whitebeard's corpse, I think the darkness fruit is the linchpin in how he can have multiple devilfruit powers, because he says the darkness fruit is a power above all others, right? Which makes a lot of sense, because as we know, in terms of power negation in One Piece, it's a very rare ability that doesn't really exist in heavy supply. With that being said, let's move on to some of the theories I have heard. Over the years, people have surmised that Blackbeard would have all 3 types of devilfruit. I agree with this notion because I think that his Jolly Roger represents this perfectly. I think the 3 skulls actually mean what his ambitions are, which is to collect all 3 types of devilfruit and have the best variant of each one. So the best Paramecia, the best Logia, and the best Zoan. However, people have come to the conclusion over the years that Zoan would be a Kraken fruit. I don't think this is the case, even though we do have a Kraken in One Piece. Tsurame, he was in the Fishman Island arc. I don't think Blackbeard will have the power of a Kraken. My reason for that is that any explanation that would lead one to believe that his Jolly Roger or his character is representative of an octopus has another explanation. For example, and I made a video on this, check it out, I'll put it in the description. So, The 8 crossbones that are emanating or going towards the 3 skulls on his Jolly Roger, I simply think those represent the cardinal directions of the world because there are 8 of them. North, south, east, west, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. And because they're emanating from the skulls or coming out from the skulls, I think he's saying that with these 3 powers at my disposal, I will either spread my influence over all 8 corners of the globe, or all 8 corners of the globe will fall to me. That's what I think Blackbeard is saying. I think it's a power play. Now, in terms of his mood swings and his atypical body, I think those things come from his sleep deprivation and just him being born a freak, like Big Mom or Odin. I don't think the theming runs that deep. I think even him being unable to sleep is to show that he is a man with dreams but does not have the physical capability to dream. He has ambition but no dreams. And seeing as how lately, especially with chapter 1069, we have come to realize that dreams can manifest devilfruits, I think that's why he is given this character trait of not being able to sleep and therefore not being able to dream. That's all I think. And then as far as him being able to get multiple fruits in the first place, I honestly think that is a byproduct of the darkness fruit and nothing else. Simple as that. So with that being said, let's move on to what type of Zoan fruit I think he will get. Before we start talking about Blackbeard's Zoan fruit, I think a little bit of preamble is needed so you can understand how I came to the conclusion I came to. Okay, so over the years of reading One Piece, I have developed something I like to call a web theory. What it is that when you have a character, let's call them character A. Character A has an arc, but then somewhere in that arc they mention character B. Then when character B's arc comes around, character A is either mentioned or shows up. So, have we seen this recently? Yes, we have. In Thriller Bark, Moria mentioned his relationship to Kaido. At that time, Moria was the only character who had a personal relationship to Kaido that we knew of. Then, when Wano came around and Kaido was formally introduced, we learned all about him. Moria shows up and he's shown to be invading Teach's Island. So I said to say these characters were established to have a relationship at the start with Moria's arc with Thriller Bark, and then that was continued when Wano came around and it was Kaido's time to shine. Now, going off of that, let's talk about Blackbeard. Blackbeard's character interactions and the characters that are related to the characters that he knows are very interesting, and there's a bit of a running theme going on, okay? So, let's go back to Thriller Bark. In Thriller Bark, you have Moria and you have Oars. Moria and Oars both look like devil characters, right? They have some devil features. Moria has a horned appearance. Oars is a big red guy with horns. Also, Oars has a belt with 3 skulls on it. Very interesting. Now, where's the Blackbeard connection? Okay, during that arc, earlier on in Thriller Bark, Blackbeard is brought up by Kuma, who visits at Moria and tells Moria that Blackbeard has become a warlord and that his body was originally 0. Very interesting. Then, later on, we get another very interesting devil parallel. So, Blackbeard has become a warlord, and the Marineford arc is in full swing. Blackbeard uses his warlord privileges to invade Impel Down. What is Impel Down? Hell, essentially. It's called Hell. Various levels of Impel Down are referred to as Hell. So, and it's based on Dante Inferno's depiction of Hell. Blackbeard breaks into Hell, and who does he find? He finds the boss of Hell, the devil, in Magellan, who is dressed up like a cartoon devil, essentially. He's got the horns, he's got the wings, he's got the whole getup. And to confirm, all of that devil stuff on Magellan is a costume. It's definitely a costume, and that's going to be important a little later. But the interesting part about said costume is that he can remove the horns and use them as pincers by putting them on his hands and injecting a foe with poison, right? So Blackbeard is then defeated by Magellan. His whole crew at that time is. Shiryu saves him, and later on, he beats Magellan and frees the level 6 prisoners. So essentially, He invades hell, gets beaten by the devil, then conquers hell, beats the devil, and escapes hell. Similarly to Luffy, except for the whole beating the devil part. Luffy doesn't do that because he simply just escapes, right? Okay, then we're in Marineford proper. Who shows up in Marineford? Little Oars Jr. or Oars the Third. What does Oars the Third look like? A big devil character. He's a big yellow devil with horns. What does he have around his neck? A trio of skulls. Very interesting. What's more interesting is that whose crew is he a part of? He's a part of Whitebeard's crew. Where did Blackbeard come from? He came from Whitebeard's crew. He's been there since he was a boy and recently defected. Very interesting, all right? So I say all this to say that there's been some very interesting devil parallels in One Piece when it comes to Blackbeard. He's interacted with several characters who look like or resemble devils. Then two of those characters, Oars and Oars Jr., who are the most devilish looking, other than Magellan, bear a trio of skulls on their person. Oars has a belt with 3 skulls on it. Little Oars Jr. has a necklace with 3 skulls on it. And as we know, that is Blackbeard's flag. Blackbeard's flag is a trio of skulls. A trio of skulls does not show up very often in One Piece. So that's a very, very interesting symbol. Just saying. Now, what do we know about the devil in One Piece? We know that there is a devil entity somewhere, because during the time skip when all the Straw Hats were sent in their various locations, there are a league of occultists on I believe it was a Long Arm Island or a Chinese inspired island, but there were a group of occultists that were trying to summon Satan, or a Lord of Darkness, right? The lead of cultists had a hat with a black sheep on it, and he was trying to summon this entity. When Brook landed, they all thought he was that entity. But that just goes to show you that there are people in the world who are Satanists, essentially. They are devil worshippers. So we know that to be true. And what do we know about devil fruits? We know that people dream, they hope, they wish, and these hopes and wishes, these dreams come into reality. They manifest into these entities that become devil fruit. So with that being said, is it so ridiculous to assume that somewhere out there could be a devil fruit that actually transforms you into a devil? Furthermore, I think a previous user of this fruit could exist. I think in Blackbeard's conquest to become more like Roxy Zebek, he is looking for this devil fruit. The reason why I say that is because what is Rox's Jolly Roger? It's a skull with horns on it, and those horns in that skull have a swirly pattern, not dissimilar to the swirly pattern that we see in Luffy's Gear 5th or on Yamato's mane when she becomes a full wolf. So that leads me to believe that this devil fruit is a mythical Zoan. And I think the name of this mythical Zoan fruit could be the human fruit model devil or model Satan, depending. Now, in speaking on the entity of Satan specifically, a lot of times in media, a lot of cartoon depictions are basically a satyr, a goat man, which is very interesting because if you recall, that one volume cover that everyone talks about, the one, I believe it's volume cover 88, the one where Luffy, Teach, and Buggy are on, it's very interesting because the goat that Sengoku has also appears on that cover, as does the miner. Now, I think the miner is a relation to the whole underworld theme that is present with Buggy specifically, and I think the goat is a reference to Rox and then Blackbeard. With the miner, it's kind of like with Crocodile, he was a underworld member, and then it's suggested that members in the underworld are funding the whole Cross Guild organization. With the goat, I think that's just a symbolic representation of what Teach will eventually look like, because like I said, a lot of depictions of Satan in media are a satyr, a goat man with wings. So I think that's a reference to how Blackbeard will eventually look when he obtains this fruit. Now, a very interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people bring up is Blackbeard's claw weapon. The claw weapon was very important to Blackbeard, and all of a sudden he lost it. I think based on how Magellan fights, the whole bit about him taking off his horns and using them as pincers, I think we'll have a run back with that when Teach actually gets this fruit, because what many people may not know is that the claw weapon is way more important what's been led on to be, because this claw weapon is the thing that scarred Shanks, and in turn it somehow, some way, is the emblem of Shanks' entire organization. It does not have red hair. It has Shanks' scar on it. So I think this devil form that Blackbeard will assume will have claws on it, and those claws will be his now primary weapon as a callback to when he used claws as a younger pirate. Also, another very important thing about Blackbeard, I think the mythical property of this devil entity that he will eventually become, presumably, will affect causality. I think this because Blackbeard has been a character who has always been focused on fate, meaning things always work out for him no matter what. For example, he survived the knockup stream. He survived getting poisoned by Magellan. He survived getting beat up by both Newgate and Sengoku and Marineford. So I think this devil entity that he will become will affect causality, which would be a very good counter to someone like Luffy, who can basically do whatever he wishes thanks to the abilities of the human fruit model Nika. So the idea of this is that when Luffy, say, tries to punch the ground and use a mole pistol attack to attack Blackbeard, Blackbeard can simply swipe at that attack and it would completely negate. He could change fate as he wishes. When an action is performed, he can simply erase it and act as if it didn't happen. I think that's what's going to be the primary power of this fruit, and that may save him too if he ever decides to go up against Shanks. An attack that would be fatal to him, he could just simply erase as if it never happened, or direct it to somewhere else. We've seen an ability like this, but it's non-canon. I believe her name was Baccarat. She had the Luck fruit back in film Gold, and she too could change causality. So you may or may not know, movies have a odd tendency of coming back into the story in some way or another. So I think Blackbeard's human fruit model devil or human fruit model Satan will have this ability attached to it. With that being said, that's all I have for you today. If you like stuff like this, please feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Polipede Works. And if you like what you see, I would appreciate your subscription. Thank you so much. See you next time.